Welcome back to the Flow Show. I'm Joanna Turner, intuitive business mentor, and I am so excited to introduce this episode today with the incredible Genine Howard. We had our interview a couple of days ago, and I am still processing what happened in that call. It was really magical. One of those calls where I felt really something happened. Something was activated. I had goosebumps numerous times, and her story is just really exciting, inspiring, a little crazy, and just really, really cool conversation. I've known Genine for a number of years. She was my client many years ago, and just to see how she has just changed and it's just so amazing. She's amazing. So I'll tell you a little bit about her with her official bio, and then I will let you dive in and just enjoy this episode and pick up some of the Empress Codes. So here we go. After selling her magazine empire, Genine Howard intentionally set out to create a business that allowed her to create impact and income without sacrificing her soul. What unfolded was her being gifted with the Empress Codes, 4 energetic pillars of being that, when embodied, allowed her to scale her coaching business and mentoring empire with ease, creating millions all while raising a family, homeschooling her 2 children, and traveling the world with her actor husband. Genine is the epitome of embodied spirituality, luxury, and grounded leadership. I hope you enjoy this call. Let me know your thoughts. I know you're going to love her. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye. Hey, and welcome back to the Flow Show. I'm here with my beautiful friend, Genine Howard, and we have so much to talk about. I was like, we just need to start this podcast, or we're going to be here for 2 hours talking first before we get into it. So, I mean, there is so much to hear, Genine. I was just telling you, I've been in Genine World yesterday. I listened to your entire podcast. For anyone, we're going to talk about some really cool stuff today, and if they need more background, they can dive in there. And I think it's just the start. It's going to hopefully join some dots for people, and it might be the start of the journey for others, because while we're going to talk about maybe some weird and wonderful things in this podcast episode, we're also not special, and we're not alone. And the more people I find out are doing this stuff, I feel more connected. I feel better, and it takes a bit of the load off my shoulders, because at some points I'm like, help, is there anybody else doing this work with me? It felt like a lot. So welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. So good to connect again, and especially at this time of life. We connected a long time ago, early in my spiritual journey, and so now we're just like, we're all in.
Yes, I know. And listening to you on your podcast, I was like, yes, you're so in it. You get like, I was like, this is wonderful, and it's so lovely to hear you, because I think we worked together back in 2016 or 17, and yeah, we certainly weren't talking about grid work back then. Let's put it that way. So,
right,
I didn't even know what I was doing. I don't know. And so we've both, I think, come a long way in our spiritual journeys. But yeah, I would love for you to just fill us in on a little bit of your background. And then maybe once we do that, we'll focus a little bit more on this year, because it feels like this year has been a massive activation for you.
Yeah, well, my background is in magazine publishing, all the glamour, the champagne, the lifestyle, all of that, until 10 years ago when I had my first child. And that was my first really spiritual awakening, where I, number one, realized how powerful I was. But number two, I now look back and I go, that was my first Kundalini awakening during that birthing process. And I started loves to share the story with other people. And back then I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that channeling actually helped me birth my baby. He started to turn breech during the birthing process. And I was speaking languages and in tongues, my midwife says. So I just know that something came over me that was more powerful than my human self, and that it really helped me through that birthing process. And so since then, I became a business coach. My husband and I kind of threw our lives up in the air and went, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he was like, I want to be an actor. And I said, I don't know what I want to do, but coaching was easy for me. Business coaching was super easy. So I did that for 10 years. And I kind of say that I left that behind about a year ago. And I really set an intention that I was going to focus more on my spiritual journey than I was about making money. Because for, 9 years, it had all been about making money. How much money can I make? And I was the breadwinner of the family, and so much stress and struggles. And I worked with you through a lot of that, healing deep traumas and the mother wound and the people pleasing wound and all of those things. And so for these last 12 months, having the intention to just let all of that part go and allow myself to fully dive in headfirst into wherever the spiritual journey wants to take me. And it's uncovered some really freaking cool stuff and some really bizarre stuff. There's still the humanness of me that has a little bit of judgment going, what the hell am I doing? But it is also super fun, right?
Right. Oh my gosh. It's one of these things, once you start, you can't stop, but you're like, what is happening? What is going on? Just for a moment, I want to ask you a question about your beautiful baby that you birthed 10 years ago. Does he feel special and connected if he brought that through for you in a sense? He brought, this power within you and awoke you in a way. Like, do you see, I love your kid, like your kids are so cute and they're like mini me and mini of you and your husband. They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
But do you feel that they're deeply connected? I know you homeschool them as well, so they're obviously getting an education that's beyond, their wildest dreams. So I'm just curious how connected they are.
Yeah. And Joe, so with Jack, who is the 10-year-old, nearly 11, so he is definitely an old soul. Like, you can tell that everything about his energy is very grounded and very wise. And I'll give you an example of a couple of things that happened early in his childhood. When I was pregnant with his sister, so Frankie, so they're two years exactly different. When I was pregnant with her, I remember standing at the front gate one day and he says to me, he's like looking at my tummy and he goes, Mummy, do you remember when you were in my tummy? And I'm like, oh, I don't, but do you? And he goes, yeah, I do. I was your mummy and you were my son. And this kid's like 3.
Full body chills. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Right? And sometimes, you can go, oh, this is just a coincidence. This is just a kid saying kid weird stuff. About 2 years later, and we'd moved back to the Sunshine Coast, and I distinctly remember he was sitting on the top bunk and I was talking to him and he goes, Mummy, do you remember when I told you that you were in my tummy and I was your mum? And I go, yeah, I do remember that. And he goes, well, it's really true. And we had a full life together. And I'm just like crying, go, oh my God, who is this kid? Like how beautiful and wise and open and, for this child to be just all in and no judgment around it. Just, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And so he has definitely been here before. And then, you have your medium sessions and clairvoyant sessions, and it always comes back around that your son, they always pick it out. There's 2 kids, they always pick it out, boy and a girl. Your son is very connected. He's been here many, many times. And they say, your daughter, though, she's fresh, she's new, she's wild, she's galactic, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, completely. And another little story to add in about my children. Frankie and I have always done little mummy-daughter chitter-chat from when she was a baby, right? So we'll chat in different made up languages. I might go, oh, so and she'll go, right? And my husband used to think we're just crackers, right?
Yeah.
And now I channel light language, and that's what that is. And I'm like, oh, she is absolutely in her prime to channel as well. And I had a session the other day with someone, and they said, like a Reiki angelic healing session, whatever, these things that we do. And she says, your daughter, have you let her listen to one of your light languages yet? And I said, and all of this stuff came up for me. I was like, oh, whoa. And I went, no, I haven't. And she goes, what are you afraid of? And I'm like, holy shit. I just know that if she listens to that, she will pop. She will get so freaking activated. And, she's still a little girl. I don't know if she's ready.
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm more chills when you say that. Oh my goodness. Because sometimes, we're not going to get into all the things that are going on in the world, but, there are moments where you can despair and lose hope and think, everything's doomed. And then you remember that these beautiful children are coming through and, they are so much more connected, so much wiser than we are. And even my little niece or my cousin's daughter looked at me when I was babysitting her and goes, do you know that I used to pee in mummy's tummy? I was like, I went, oh, really? I said, how do you know that? She said, oh, I remember. And I just went, okay, what else do you remember? So they are so, aware and wise, and they give me so much hope. And I'm so, so excited that your children are part of this, whatever is coming, the new way, the new earth. And and you're setting them up so beautifully with this, the wisdom and the experiences that you've obviously had over the last year and beyond that. So yeah, thank you for doing that for your kids. I'm like so excited about these. Oh, they blow me away every time, just very, very happy about that. So tell me a little bit about the Empress Codes that you feel that you birthed with beautiful Jack, and how they emerged, and then how they're continuing to evolve.
Yeah. Well, at first they came through what I thought as marketing, like marketing words. This is back when first started my coaching, but I was also running magazines still. And, I like now I look back and I'll use the words of now because it's easier. But I downloaded these 4 pillars. Like I literally felt these 4 pillars come down, and these 4 pillars were the 4 structures to base everything on that would enable a person to become full of, abundance, joy, love, light, and all the things. So back in the day, they actually came through as abundance, style, ease, and grace. So they're lovely marketing words, and they had a lot of information behind it, and I based my magazine content on it and all the things. And as I developed my spiritual gifts and really tapped into them, they started coming through as codes and activations, and to the point where they really got consolidated in January 2019, and I was hosting a retreat in Bali. And like a funny little story, we're all on the plane going to Bali because, I have a lot of fun on my retreats with my clients, as well as some, really deep, powerful stuff. But on the plane on the way over, someone started saying, oh, imagine if we all got tattoos. What would you get if you got a tattoo?
Yeah.
Long and short of it, everyone got a tattoo on my retreat.
I got a tattoo in Bali too. Yeah.
Right.
What did you guys get?
Well, not the same tattoo. That would be a bit strange. But anyway, so we went
logo.
to...
we didn't all get the logo. You will become part of my cult and get my logo.
Empress, that's right. So no, it wasn't quite as weird as that. But anyway, I went and did a ceremony with a high priestess and downloaded, the one tattoo that, what am I saying one for? I've got many now. So it's a triangle tattoo with open for change and chevrons at the top to, you know, represent creating my own reality.
That's my little one. 2 little open triangles. Oh, the top of yours. It's almost like it could link right into the top of your tattoo.
Oh my God,
funny.
that is super interesting.
And I just did a huge ceremony and then had to go get it in Bali. So that's funny.
Interesting. Okay. And of course, right? Of course. So this tattoo then afterwards, so I would just meditate on the tattoo and it would bring me codes. It would bring me information, the keys to life, the keys to why we're here, all of the things, right? And it's on the left-hand side in the upside down triangle. So it's in the feminine, divine feminine. So these codes just kept coming and coming and coming. The information I was just downloading more and more, and constantly linking back to the pyramids, constantly linking back to sacred geometry, constantly linking back to the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence. So all of these mathematical codes and all of the things. And so, you know, my diaries are hilarious. They're like the Da Vinci Code. You know, I'll be drawing the Eye of Horus and then going, oh my God, it's related to this. And right. Again. Could talk about this forever.
Yeah, I'm curious because when, you know, so trying to sort of put some for people who are like, okay, you got a code or a download. What, like, physically, how do you experience that in your body? Or so, for instance, somebody that I hope to get on one day, which is very busy and has 3 kids, is Hannah, who draws her codes, and then I've had them onto my body. So she's a big link. I don't know when she's going to drop in, but hopefully at some point. But yeah, how do you experience them or pull them through?
Yeah. So for me, it's generally when I'm, you know, in a meditative state, but I don't have to be in a full process. Like for me, I feel like it's 3 deep breaths drop down into my heart space. Boom.
Yeah.
And it's opening the intention to receive. And then I feel it literally drop in. So drop down through, and like, I'm just trying to be conscious of how does this actually work? Because most of the time it just happens, right? So it literally drops in and I'll feel it in my heart space. So I talk a lot about the golden heart, this golden sacred heart. So I know that that's truth. And then I'll get the body shivers. So my whole body will then get super activated.
Yeah.
Generally, I'll also start leaking from my eyes. So my eyes will just start check when I know that I'm right in the energy.
Yeah.
If I'm channeling, so a couple of years ago on Lionsgate, I started channeling Goddess Isis. That is a little different.
I'm curious,
right?
Which
so that was
if you remember,
last year, the year before, with 3 years ago.
So 2020?
2020? No,
maybe.
No, I have no concept of time.
I mean,
it would have been 2020. Yes.
Okay. So I was just curious. Yeah. Go on.
So leading up to Lionsgate 2020, like just about 3 days before, I was like, oh, apparently I'm going to channel and take people into the Queen's Chamber with Goddess Isis. So then on Lionsgate, right, doing a thing, bring people into the Queen's Chamber. We're doing DNA recoding. And then my light language really started coming through. So I was literally channeling, like, and speaking through Goddess Isis. So since then I've had that super connection with Isis and the pyramids and the Queen's Chamber and DNA activation.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but
yes. Thank you so much. There's so much. For me, I'm obviously trying to figure out how it all fits together, and I don't know if I ever will. I don't know if it's something, but I feel that there's something within me that's supposed to connect a whole bunch of these experiences and the people, and I've been sort of doing, I've been on my own journey, but we don't need to go into all that. But when there's pieces that link, I'll try and bring that through. When your story links with mine, I'll be like, hang on, like me too, because it's just so wild. It's so wild. It's so exciting and so interesting. So thank you so much. I'm already loving everything you're sharing. So tell me, so from that experience going into the Lionsgate. And the reason I asked specifically which one was because while I believe that we've been doing this work unconsciously for our whole lives, right? Like obviously your babies are very connected. You're taking them, I believe. You've just done this beautiful journey that I'd love you to share about. You've taken them all over the world, and they're not, they're just kids. They've had this incredible experience. So their journey has started in whatever work we're doing. They're included, right? They're beautiful little beings are on this journey. And I started when I was a child, and my parents took me to places, and some of them I was like, oh, this is so boring. Why are we at another ancient site or another cathedral or more standard? They used to take us on these trips, and I didn't get it, but there was something happening that was beyond me in those moments of going to those places, and whatever code that I was supposed to get, I think even as a child, was happening without me having to do anything, right? So, and as children, we are more in our heart space anyway. We're more in flow. We're not sort of overthinking things. So we're sort of in that energy and able to pick it up. And then as I got older, I would go and do these things unconsciously, again, totally unaware, like had no idea I was doing it. But I would be in sacred sites. I decided to try and visit all the ancient wonders of the world. Why? I have no idea. I wasn't spiritual, but like that was part of my mission. I don't know. I guess I was just doing it. I was just going on interesting holidays, but I was going to all these different places and getting, I guess, codes. I had no idea. But in the Lionsgate 2018, I was hyper aware of what I was doing and how it was unfolding. And I had the most magical, mystical experience in the Lionsgate 2018. And it links back to some of your experience as well. So that's why I was asking specifically about the Lionsgate, because I felt like it kind of all activated. And I was I felt, and I know you've had this experience as well, it's like I felt like I was in the Matrix. I really was truly, or like almost like Truman Show meets the Celestine Prophecy meets meets the Matrix. Like, and I was sort of walking around, and I could feel it unfolding around me, and I was like, this is wild. Like things are getting real weird, but just going with it and knowing that it was truly, on the right path, right? I was like, this is getting wacky, but it all started. But I was aware of it probably before that. I think maybe, a couple of years earlier, I was sort of more aware of what was happening, but it was hyper focused in this Lionsgate. So it's just interesting that you brought that up, and I can see when things are super potent in those times. So I love that. But yeah, so going back to your experience in Lionsgate and the beautiful channeling, how do you think that then unfolded over the next couple of years, and then specifically into your journey this year and your physical journey this year as well?
Yeah. So then my connection with the pyramids, like the Great Pyramids of Giza, was like heightened and potent. And I just knew that I had to go no matter what, I would get there. Obviously, Australia shut down. So we weren't allowed to travel for a couple of years. So we at that time, that's why the traditional things. And I was like, the minute that we're allowed to travel, we are out of here. So it wasn't until a year ago, so November, what was last year, 2022.
Yeah.
And I saw some images of a girl that I'd been in like a mastermind with. I saw her images that she'd just come back from Egypt. And the second I saw the images, I was like, right, this is the person that I'm going with, and I'm going again. I know she's just been, but I'm going with her.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her, just went, just saw you're in Egypt. We're going. She goes, yes, we are. We're actually going to go in November next year. I was like, and yes, we are.
I love it.
And we did,
Yes.
right? We did some other grid work and opening portals all around the world. So we did Puerto Rico, did the south of France with Mary Magdalene, the Rose Line, and all of that leading up, which was actually super important to be able to get to the point that we were all ready for this higher elevation of the work that we're doing with the pyramids in particular. So, yeah, where would you like to go with that? Because there's a lot in between that as well.
Okay, well, tell me just about your travel schedule this year. So you've been, well, Puerto Rico, south of France. Just tell me a little bit about how that unfolded. Yeah, and then Italy as well, because it's been super prominent as in all of the stuff as well. So
Yeah, it really has.
the other part of it as
Yeah,
well is
so
50 this year. So
yes.
you don't look, of course. But how, so when we talk about 50, sometimes we think about the Chiron return, and it's
Yeah.
the wounded healer, and it's like a rite of passage. So that came through to me this morning. I was like, oh my gosh, you're in your Chiron return. How exciting. So part of, I think, the timing for you as well to go to Egypt, and that's this point in your life, and then whatever you have to heal and bring through is extra potent at this time. So yeah, I would just love to sort of hear about that experience and how you feel it ties in.
Yeah, and you were right on, because what needed to happen prior to me going to Egypt was I needed to basically heal all of the things that needed to get me in a point that I could be in total alignment and not be, triggered with my mum's story or my marriage and all of things. So for the last 12 months, the shit has come up in my face big time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So all around my marriage, all around my relationship with my mother, my sister, all the family, all of the things. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so, for example, going to the physical locations this year has been important.
Mm-hmm.
We can all do work energetically. For me this year, it's been about physically going to these locations. So Puerto Rico for me, so one aspect was about me, and it was actually really healing the relationship with my husband and me healing the relationship with the masculine,
Yeah.
and not looking at the masculine like it's toxic or it's the patriarchy, right? It's allowing the divine masculine to really support me in all ways, trusting the divine masculine within myself and within my literal husband. And so
Mm-hmm.
there was some really big work that we did there, and talking then about how that was working on an energetic sense. So Puerto Rico, there's a lot of energetic portals there. And the portals that we were going into were very deep, earthy, masculine, emerald energies, very ancient, tribal, really, that wanted to be recognized. It
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have an apology,
Wow.
right? So it
Yeah.
wanted to be seen. And the divine masculine then wanted to rise up out of the waters of Puerto Rico to really help the earth.
Yeah.
So I'm getting really energized as I'm speaking about this. Sometimes when you're listening as a listener to these things, it can sometimes seem like it's just words, but the energy of this is being transmitted through.
Mm-hmm.
That if you allow yourself to receive the energy of this, so the earthy divine masculine is coming up now to meet the divine feminine in a way that she can receive it,
Mm.
and it can actually help balance things out.
Yes.
So feel into that, and then we'll get to the pyramids, because that's an important piece. So it was within myself
Mm-hmm.
and for the planet. Yes.
Yeah.
What just came up for you?
Atlantis. So
Ah,
there are many different theories about Atlantis, and I love listening to the ancient one, like all the ancient sort of lost civilizations information and things. And some theories think it's in the north of Africa, but most people, it keeps coming back to the area sort of off the coast of Florida, between Bermuda, Florida, and it's kind of, I think it's the Dominicanish Puerto Rico area. So that whole area is really activated. Obviously, it's also pretty close to Mexico with all the beautiful temples and Mayan stuff there. But when I think of coming rising out of the waters, Atlantis, it's also
Mm.
the Atlantic Ocean, right? So it makes sense that it would be named after it. Um, is the lost sunk civilization, right? So it literally was flooded and lost under the waters of that area. And so when you talk about the divine masculine rising, feeling that energy coming up from the waters of Puerto Rico, I immediately think of Atlantis. And I know that I
Mm.
had a life there, and a connection to that was brought through from other work that we'll talk about when I was in Dubai, working on some really important royal codes, royal abundance codes in Dubai.
Mm.
This, so it might sound totally sort of wacky out of context, but for me, I immediately am like, oh, that's the connection for with Genine with Puerto Rico, right? So immediately I'm thinking, oh, I see. And I, for randomly in my sort of journey, lived in Bermuda for 6 years, which I think you know, but I've recently found out that my office for 4 years was right next to a star fort. And I was like, hang on a second. They had me literally sitting at a star fort in Bermuda for 4 years every day. Okay. Like just, they obviously build these star forts on highly energized ground because it's so electrical, which we will talk about when you get to Egypt. And I was like, why was I there? Why was I in Bermuda? And I used to ride my bike to this other fort, and just sit there, and had some of the most magical moments of my life. And I was like, what am I doing here? I have no clue at the time, but it all starts to link. I'm like, of course I was there on that point. And it's the Bermuda Triangle. I know you talked about triangles on your podcast as well. And I was like literally sitting at a point on the triangle for 4 years, or 6 years really, but four specifically. So yeah, that kind of stuff. I'm like, what is going on? And then you're doing work on another, anyway, it
Mm-hmm.
just so much here. I can't even. I want to get back to your story, but there's so many links for me, and I'm going, oh, I can't even wrap my head around it. Right. So back to maybe that. Yeah. What does that piece
Yeah.
mean for you in terms of Puerto Rico?
Yeah. So that was a healing within myself so I could actually honor the divine masculine, divine feminine within myself, get that balanced.
Yeah.
Because then it's not about me. The rest of the journey is not about me. So
Yeah.
the next place I went to was Bali. This was not
Yeah.
with the same group. This was just on a holiday with girlfriends.
Yeah.
And yeah, even though it looked like we weren't doing much, we were at a retreat and, it was actually just lots of massages and all the things. I was in this space where I was ready to fully accept the divine masculine. So that's when I got the second tattoo, the matching tattoo from the divine feminine to the divine
Like, oh, a wee bit
masculine.
further. Oh wow, cool. That's beautiful. Lovely. That's
So
so
it's
nice.
the balance of both. So that was a
Yeah.
nice little sojourn, which then put me in great stead to go to south of France
Yeah.
and go and visit, like follow the rose lines of Mary Magdalene.
Mm-hmm.
So
Love.
in south of France, we were called to activate the waters. Everything's about water. Like if you haven't caught on yet, it's about water.
I,
Activate the waters.
yeah. I love it. Oh my god.
Activate the waters of Mary Magdalene. So we went up to the grotto where, she supposedly lived for the last 30
Yeah.
years of her life. And this could be a long story, so I'll try and give you the shortened version. As we were going into the grotto, which is now like a basilica, high
Mm-hmm.
up in the mountains, there was a beautiful chorus of people singing, and we were like, oh, so angelic, lovely, lovely. And we walked in to going, oh, there's 8 men standing, 8 priests standing there singing. And all of a sudden I felt repulsed, physically like repulsed. I'm like, oh, hang on, what's going on here? Because it sounds amazing. And what came through was that the grotto basically represented the divine feminine, the womb space of womanhood, and it's being like a veil put over the top of it. Basically, I was called to clear the distortions of the womb. So while there was all of this going on, here's me in the background, retching and like clearing the distortions of the room for the collective, for myself first, by the way. I've had a lot of fertility issues and all of the things, and, all of the things that we, as women often carry around, and then for the collective. So that was huge energetic work that, I was really honored to be called to do, because, for anyone listening to this, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Me either.
Right?
I have no idea either.
And it's so, I love when
right?
Right? And here's the thing. It's like when I allow myself to fully drop in and just go with the feeling, go with the intuition, then magic really happens. Synchronicities happen. It's like you become this vortex of like crazy stuff. So did the clearing of the womb. And then another little piece of this trip was I went to the Mary Magdalene Basilica down in the town, St. Maxim.
It's around there because I've got it marked on my map because I need to go. It's around there.
Right?
Yeah. I know exactly where. Yeah.
It's where the basilica is, where it holds her relic, her skull in the crypt.
Yeah.
And actually, I shared this story today, but I forgot a couple of the really important bits. I went in and I took a photo, and just a beautiful like panoramic photo, and on the back of Mary Magdalene, like when you take something, you're like, really, everyone's like, oh my god. So anyway, so that's just a small little piece to give you. But when I was in the basilica, I'd been down into the crypt and with everybody, and viewed the skull, and that's really pretty and all the things. And just before I was leaving, I felt myself being called, and I was by myself in there. And I kind of went down. I was like, yes, Mary, did you want something? Your head's just going, really? What's happening here? And then I felt Mary say to me, do my work through you. And I was like, all right, you're on. Let's do this. I don't know what that means, but let's just do that. So let's say she came to Egypt with me.
Yes.
Yeah, so fully felt her presence out in Egypt. So, yes, which brings us to Egypt.
Yes.
And
well, you had a little sojourn in Italy first, right? Did you go to Italy first?
I did.
For your first, and then back to Egypt. Not that I've been stalking your show. I'm like, you went specifically, you were in the Amalfi Coast in Florence, like to very specific places.
Correct. Yeah.
And you were,
okay. So
called back, right, to that very precise point, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us about that.
Correct. You're very correct. And again, how long's the flow show for?
We're good. We're good. I think it's important. I just want to tie this up somehow. I don't know. But yeah.
All right.
I won't keep you all night. Don't worry.
No, it's all good. So I knew coming up to my 50th birthday that I had to go back to the same villa on the Amalfi Coast that I'd been to 13 years prior.
Yeah.
Just knew, terribly expensive. But I was like, this is what I have to do. So booked it. That's all I did. Like, we had no flights, no plan, no nothing. So booked this villa. And then we're like, well, I better book some flights. So we booked a one-way flight to Italy with the family because we're like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know. And so we got to this villa. Like, we went to Rome first. Actually, there's a piece here for Rome. When we're walking around Rome, and I'm with my family, so I'm not really doing grid work and energy work. However, exactly. Our apartment was looking over the Colosseum. It was so close, literally the Colosseum out 3 windows.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, do you know where we're located? Our apartment is literally sitting on top of where all the gladiators would actually live.
Ooh.
They would live and train right underneath us. Now, you
Yeah.
can imagine the fear, the anger, the frustration. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm getting fully activated here. That was coming up from from underneath us and the Colosseum, and like the disgust and the patriarchy and the conquering and the empire, the Roman Empire. I'm sitting on top of the bloody Roman Empire. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
my business is called Empress Empires.
Mm-hmm.
And so whilst I was there, I was bringing the rose lineage activation from Mary Magdalene into that area, bring it through with love and peace and divine feminine. And literally I was imagining like red rose petals, like swirling through the Colosseum. So really flipping the empire upside down
Yeah.
on its head, right? So if we talk
Mm-hmm.
about the triangle of the masculine, it's
Mm-hmm.
about flipping everything completely upside down. So that
Yeah.
was pretty potent.
Just throw that in there. I mean, I was just there with having a nice holiday with my family, though.
But you know what it's like? There's so much that happens on a minute by minute basis. Like, it's constant.
Oh, I nearly forgot that piece. Okay, I have stuff to say about the rose line, but let's and if anyone actually just for a moment, if anyone's not aware of what that is, um, the world is covered in ley lines, and they act. I often like to think of it in the way I would describe it is that the human body has chakras and energy centers in our body, and we are connected by if you've ever been for acupuncture, you know that I'm not explaining this to you, you know this, but we have meridian lines all over our bodies that run energy, and if they get blocked, then we can get ill, we can have things happening in our life. So we want our energy to be running clearly, we want to release, and that can it can be blocked by things like trauma, just things that are going on in your life, and all sorts of things. So anything that causes blocks in that energy needs to be cleared so as we can be healthy and thrive and connected and live in flow as human beings. So we're always talking about unblocking our chakras and aligning our energy centers and all this stuff. And it's basically the same thing as you heal your human self, and align all that, we're also doing the same thing on the planet. So in theory, if you think about it, I used to go to some of those amazing acupuncture people when I was in Australia to get my energy running in my body. And I like to think of us like acting as little acupuncture needles for the planet in a sense. So the planet also has chakras or energy centers. We're going to talk about Egypt being one of them. We're also going to talk about Stonehenge in a minute. That's one of them. And some of these ancient sort of sites that a lot of people are drawn to on pilgrimages and things like that are these energy centers of chakras of the planet. And then they're connected by ley lines, which are like our body's meridian lines. in a very sacred geometrical pattern, and then they can be blocked with energy. The energy centers, the chakras can be, and the ley lines can be as well. So we're kind of like acting. I don't know if I've ever described it like this before, but I feel like when we talk about this work, let's talk about, well, we're the acupuncture needles going in and unblocking the energy of the ley lines of the world's chakras, in a sense. So we're not Chinese medicine trained, but that's what we're doing, consciously and unconsciously, on our little sacred mission, right? And the rose line is is one of those lines that I feel like myself and obviously you, and then a lot of the people I'm connected with have been focusing on that line, and some other ones as well, but it's really come up beautifully. And obviously the rose is linked to the divine feminine, and yeah, I'll tell a little bit more about my connection to it later on, but the yeah, that's how I imagine it. So just to sort of, I suppose we're talking all this stuff, but how do we sort of wrap some, so yeah, you're doing sort of your global acupuncture work. That's how I like to think of it.
I love the way that you explained that, and it really makes sense too, because we're using our human body as a conductor of the energy to actually transmute and transform that energy. So that's why we in our human bodies need to do all of the deep healing work so that we actually are in alignment. Our chakras and meridian lines are running really clear. And that was really apparent leading up to Egypt as well. So thank you for that explanation. I think that really helps.
But just more for people listening, so as they kind of understand.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love that. And so, you think about Rome, there was some clearing work for me to do. So obviously I was going there. Amalfi Coast was really about this alignment of, I believe, I was turning 50, so had that. And the day before I turned 50, my husband and I renewed our vows. And we renewed our vows in this ancient basilica that was right next door to the villa. Longer, cute story, but just imagine it was all lovely and the kids were involved in all of the things. I believe that we were coming together as a representation of the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, the divine union coming together.
Yes.
Right. So wasn't
that's beautiful.
And there was a lot of astrological alignments and all the things, and Venus was doing something cool with Mars, and
as she would be. I got more chills when you said that. So I mean, you're just, I love this because you're following the energy, you're following the flow, and allowing yourself to have these magical experiences. Because so many people, like, they might get the nudge that, oh, I should go to Egypt. Like, I know I'm supposed to, but I'm also waiting on the right time. It's not yet, but I know I'm going. I know that's part of my journey. But yeah, I love that you've just allowed yourself fully to go into it and sort of surrender into the energy. And before we get into Egypt, because I do want to talk about that, but can you just, what was your sort of process in sort of allowing yourself to do that? Because I used to have a client who will remain nameless at the moment, but who used to say, oh, I get these divine downloads all the time. I said, oh, wow, okay, great. And she just, and I said, and so what are they like? How do you work with them? And she's like, oh, I totally ignore them. It's like, it's like, okay. So she was super connected. They were like, hello, please go and do this. And she just wouldn't do it. So obviously once we started working together, she allowed herself to trust and start following that stuff. But what sort of, what was your process in allowing yourself, especially in this last year, to really dive in?
Yeah, the two words you just said was trust and surrender. I have worked over the last 10 years really to really allow myself to trust and surrender. And that's been a lot of deep healing work. And, doesn't necessarily mean that everyone needs to do all of that work and doesn't have to take that long. In fact, I think in this day and age, it doesn't take as long. But it is what it is for me. And so I'm able to get to the point that I just am so unattached to anyone else's judgments, anyone else's perceptions of me. And, that's partly to do with my age, but also to do with a lot of the inner work that I've done, that when I get an idea, let's put it as simple as that. When I get an idea, I just go, right, well, that is what I'm meant to do. So book the one-way ticket to Italy. How that then showed up was we found on Instagram a world schooling cohort that was going to be in just outside of Florence. And it literally started the day that we were checking out of our apartment in our villa in Amalfi. Right? Of course. So, you just go, oh, well, that's too synchronistic to say no to. That's what we're doing. And not being attached to, oh, that's too pricey, or how are we going to do all of those things, right? Just we get to figure it out. So it's this muscle that I believe I've been able to really exercise of. And honestly, I've been doing this for years, of course, right? Back when I was in my very early 20s, I remember vividly having an idea going, oh my God, I'm in the wrong place. Like I was down in Melbourne. I'm in the wrong place. I have to go to Queensland. Where in Queensland? I have absolutely no idea, but I have to go, and I have to go soon. 3 weeks later, I'm in Port Douglas in Queensland.
Of all places.
Right. Just, and magic things happen from there. So it's been this muscle that I've exercised unconsciously back in the day, but now really consciously.
Yeah.
So going to then near Florence, turns out there was a whole bunch of other codes for me to collect there.
Of course.
So, of course. And so, this in my world, I'm like, hey, maybe it's really cool if I run a retreat in Florence, like just outside of Tuscany. Let's do that. So I, find a villa and open it up. People come. We arrive at the villa, and within 3 minutes, the Haley who owns the villa, who was sort of hosting us in her home, she goes, do you know that I just opened a portal yesterday, activating the divine feminine, and actually, what was she saying? Reclaiming the Vesica Pisces.
Oh,
and
I will think about that too. Oh my God, right. Oh no. Oh,
right.
wow.
And you're just like, yeah, of course. So she's so down with it all, and she travels to energetic centers and all the things. And I thought she just made some lovely food and had a fancy villa for us to stay in.
Connected with her and talked about going to use her villa, actually. That's so funny.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, maybe there's something there. I must. I'll see if she wants to come on the podcast. I'd love to hear her story.
Right?
Wow. Okay. Very cool.
So that retreat was amazing. And when I was on that retreat and living near Florence, I very much downloaded, and you mentioned this just before, the royal codes, the true royal codes, the blue blood royal codes, which all link back to Mary Magdalene, link back to Jesus Christ, link back to their lineage, all of the things. And so tapping into those true royal codes there, for abundance, and that there's a lot of us who are being activated into our true royal lineage, not the kings and the queens like the royal family of Britain. None of that. No. But the true royal codes. And, obviously that could be a whole other podcast in itself.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe we'll just put a little pin in that for just a second, and maybe we'll have to come back to that. But yeah, there's so much. So Italy, beautiful retreat, more Roseline stuff. I love it. And then Vesica Pisces, I'm so excited about that. And then And then, oops, and then I lose you for a moment. Hang on. Oh, hang on.
That's
She's back. Okay. That's okay. So, oops, she's away again. Let's just wait for a moment.
That's all right. Continue on.
Yeah, just making sure you're definitely here. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about Egypt and how that unfolded, or some of your key highlights from Egypt.
Oh my goodness, where do I start with Egypt? Yeah.
I
Okay.
love
So
about when you were talking about Siwa, like that. I mean, I was very activated by that in your podcast. I was like, oh, okay, there's a piece here to connect.
yeah, well, Siwa, what's really funny about this story is that when I connected in to go to Egypt, I'm thinking we're going to Hathor Temple, we're going to Isis Temple, we're doing like Aswan, we're doing Luxor, all of the things. And when I got the itinerary for Egypt, I was like, are you kidding me? We're going to the desert. I'm not available to be going to the desert, right?
Really?
And what's even more, it's like the desert, an 8-hour drive from Cairo to the desert.
Love it.
I was like,
Wonderful.
are you sure you've got this right? I'm not sure that that's what we're meant to do, right? So hilariously, but of course that's exactly what we're meant to do. So we fly into Cairo, don't even see the pyramids. We get in a car and 6 of us women drive out with a driver, drive out 8 hours across the desert in the middle of nowhere to this oasis called Siwa. I'd never heard of it before. And so we get there and it's so like 3,000 years ago, right? It's very ancient and old and all of the things. And still I'm like, I'm really not sure why we're meant to be here. Of course, we spent 4 days of absolutely purifying our elemental body. Siwa, if you don't know what it is, Siwa was an ocean. It has such rich salt, oasis springs full of just earthiness bubbling up from everywhere. There is, mud oases that, we went in and we painted our bodies with it that are so potent and rich. So people used to travel across all of Egypt to go to Siwa for healing. And so we were there to really purify like our human body, tap into the waters of Siwa, activate the waters of Siwa into their crystalline perfection. Of course, so that we'd be ready to go and do activation work in the pyramids of Giza. And before I go over there, some really cool things happened in Siwa, obviously. One of them was we visited what's called the Oracle Temple. And the Oracle Temple, it's famous that apparently Alexander the Great traveled all the way across the world to visit the Oracle and to receive messages from the Oracle. Basically, will I be king? And if the Oracle says no, then no, you're not going to be. A lot of kings would go across the lands to say, am I going to defeat my enemy? Very, patriarchal. And so at this Oracle Temple, which is all like in ruins now, a couple of cool things happen. One, I was called to go and stand theoretically where the Oracle would have stood.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I started looking at the hieroglyphs on the walls. I started to feel the energy of the hieroglyphs and realized they had a sound that I was then able to translate through my voice. And I started channeling these hieroglyphs, standing in the spot where the oracle would have stood. The sunlight came in, boom. Next thing you know, I am fully channeling. I laugh and go, I was channeling like a mofo. Streaming, light language, a go, all the things, happening all at once. It's kind of hilarious when you look back at it because you're like, this is nuts. But during that channeling, one of the other girls who was on the trip with us, she said, and I don't remember this, she said, you were channeling, you turned to me, opened your eyes and looked right at me. And she said, I felt a real sister connection. And she said, the unconditional love energy that was pouring from you pushed her back.
Wow.
She said it's never, ever felt anything like it.
More chills.
Right?
Oh,
So super cool,
God.
super cool. And then,
Wow.
just to add more information to this, there is a section of the Oracle Temple where the priests would live. So it's actually priests who would do a lot of the healings, right? So in these little rooms, but there was a section where the priests lived and ate and all of the things. And myself and two other girls, I went, ooh, come with me. We're meant to be here. One of them, the one who I had looked at with the unconditional love, I said, we're meant to do something here. So we stood there and all three of us just started to do whatever work that came through us. And this is pretty out there. Even for me, I was called to take some of my menstrual blood and place it into, like, on the ground where the priest would have laid. And boom, the second that I did that, I started channeling some sort of, I don't know, warrior goddess, something. She was pissed, man. She was like in, and she was like doing all sorts of things. Like, and for anyone listening, this is literally what happens. Something takes over you. Channeling. And the other two women were beside me, and they just knew what to do. They were there, and we were in, and we were supporting, and we were all just crying and activated. And anyway, straight after we'd finished that activation, we were like, oh, whoa, that was interesting. A busload of young girls, young schoolgirls, probably about 14, 15, poured in to that exact same site. And we're like, oh, we've just reclaimed the beautiful maiden energy of the Oracle Temple.
Oh my God, more chills, Janine. You are doing the work, girl. I love it. This is phenomenal.
Right.
So
And
good.
again, I don't know what I'm doing.
But that's the beautiful thing. And we're sort of, I want to just, for a second before we go on to the next part, we might laugh and sort of joke. We take this very seriously with great reverence at the same time, right? But this stuff I feel is so beyond, it's beyond us. We have, even if the most experienced energy, we've been doing this, I've been doing it for 10 years as well. As the most experienced energy workers, well, working, had my awakening before that, but we still don't get it fully. Like, we're sort of following it. I'm trying to connect some dots here between you and me and other people, and but we take this with great reverence at the same time. But also, the best spiritual teachers, Janine, have a sense of humor and find the whole great universal mystery quite hilarious. So I sometimes find that the more enlightened people are, the funnier they seem to think the whole thing is. So at least we can laugh at ourselves while taking it with great reverence at the same time.
Right.
Yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then those girls wouldn't know what hit them when they get into that place. And then the beautiful thing is, right, even though you don't really understand why you did it, but you did it, and then they all get activated in that moment unconsciously, probably most of them, like we were when we were children and going and doing things, but they've come to Siwa for a reason. They don't know what it is. Then you're there at that exact moment. Then they take that beautiful work and the coding and the reclamation back to wherever they came from, who knows where, to take that healing and that energy back to those places, and that kicks off a whole another level of stuff. We just have we're such this tiny little piece of this giant puzzle, that we really have no clue what the heck is going on, or why you're called at that, or why you even had your period in that moment, right? So it's all part of this bigger thing that we have no clue about, and what those women will go on to do or be or feel or have or change. So beautiful. It makes me want to cry. It makes me want to cry. It's so beautiful. But well, thank you for doing this. Like, thank you for trusting and following and doing this shit that when you feel totally crazy, you know, like it's very moving. Very moved.
Yeah.
um, anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm
Thank
getting a
you.
wee bit moved. But yeah, like, thank you. I just can't even. Oh, just so good, Genine. Wonderful. I don't know. Can I be proud of you? Yes. I don't know.
Yeah,
The whole,
you
all the
can be
things.
proud of me.
I'm in awe. I'm like just blown away by it as well. Like, I love it. I love it. Anyway, oh, I could go on, but um, okay. So tell me from there back to the pyramids. Oh,
Yeah. So, just imagine the trip is amazing. Siwa, fun in the desert and all of the things, and, everything's in alignment. And so we as a collective were physically in our bodies ready. So we'd
yeah,
purified our bodies, we'd aligned ourselves. We're out in the middle of the desert where there's natural pyramids everywhere. And I said to Nahala, who was our Egyptian tour guide, I said, "Oh my God, there is so many pyramids in this desert." She goes, "Anywhere the energy is really pure, natural pyramids form." Which, by the way, led me to a download that where I live on the Sunshine Coast, there are pyramids here. I sent a message to my team and my clients. I went, "Oh my God, there are pyramids on the Sunshine Coast." My team member, Sarah, goes, "I just drove past one yesterday and said to my husband, there's a pyramid." So all of this is like boom, 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 connecting. There's a
I've been
pyramid in
listening to
Gympie
podcasts
just up the road.
about that. Yeah, yeah. I've been listening to a lot of Australian ancient stuff about that. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Very cool.
so heading to the Giza Plateau, let me feel into the important bits because there is so much. We spent an entire day on the plateau. The first part we spent external to the Great Pyramid. We entered the third pyramid and went inside. Its energy was turned off. It didn't feel online.
Yeah.
The Great Pyramid, however, was pretty much almost fully online because the moment I got out of the bus, I felt like shaky activated. And so myself and Karina, the one that I said, "I'm going to Egypt with you," her and I were
Yeah.
walking around together and just, fully activated. And we were pulled aside by an Egyptian guy. I assume he's a guide, one of the custodians of the pyramid, I guess. And he said, "You two, you've got a beautiful open heart. Come with me." And he pulled us into the Great Pyramid, pulled us down a corridor, and there was just almost like a cut out section and like a window, but it's not a window. And he said, "You two, put your hands here and meditate." We're like, "Okay, that's what we're doing." So we put our hands here. The moment that my hands touched the pyramid, boom, my whole body, I felt a charge of energy run straight up through me, all the way out the top. And it was like
Wow.
we were being electrified. Like when you're a kid and you hold on to a electric fence at the farm. It was like that. And we're literally, but like in the most joyous way, tears streaming out of our eyes, literally like we were a battery conductor.
Mm-hmm.
Pulled our hands off and we're like, "Whoa!" Turned around and he is just beaming, going, "Uh-huh, now you see." And he said, "I
Ooh.
knew that you two would feel it." Because most people are just like hooking around, patting the camels, all of the things, right? And we were like just so honored and we hugged him and we're like, "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you." Like it was just such a beautiful moment to share with someone who knows the true power of the
Mm-hmm.
pyramids, knows the true technology. So that was very special. And so then from there, I decided that the pyramid was speaking to me.
It
and
was.
wanted to channel some information. And so everyone was just, wandering around the plateau. And so I took myself to it was a really big piece of rose granite that it must have been pulled out from within the pyramid somewhere. So it was this big chunk. And I went over and I placed my hands on it. And the second I placed my hands on it, I started channeling light language, the most I've ever channeled before. And I started singing. I could feel the energy. I could hear the energy. It was just, I had no choice, but I was singing, like going up through the pyramid. And I'm outside of it, wasn't even in it, singing these really high notes and then coming back down into earth and bringing these tones up that were really deep and resonant. And so, channeling all sorts of things. And then I literally was channeling the message from the Great Pyramid. I honestly don't quite remember. It is recorded. I haven't been brave enough to listen to my own recording yet.
Wow.
But I know it was pretty cool. It was basically the pyramid was saying, let me tap in. The pyramid was saying that we are a fractal nature, a fractal of the pyramid, that our human body is the pyramid, is the representation. And so the alignment of the pyramid with the stars and the energetic connection with the waters below is the body, is the temple, and that we are the electrical conductor of all of this energy. Something like that.
Beautiful.
There was
Wow.
more, but that's all I can work out at the moment.
Oh, I just have a sort of little side note about this that's coming through, and that I'm very connected to water as well. I'm a Scorpio water sign, but with the salt as well and the minerals, and the high. So I think there's a lot of the water stuff's been coming through. I'm hearing it from astrologers, but also within myself and the connection. And there's a lot going on with the healing of the waters. And we need to be, as humans, most humans are dehydrated, right? I think that's part of it. And for things like kinesiology to work properly, muscle testing, you need to be hydrated. So, and to conduct the electricity, our cells need to be hydrated. And our cells need to be hydrated. And to hydrate a cell, you need to be mineralized with salts, right? You know this, but just more for the listener context. So, like table salt doesn't cut it. Table salt dehydrates you. Like this, just the plain sort of sodium chloride, I believe the table salt dehydrates you. But if you take a Celtic sea salt, which is the best, I think it has 92 minerals and things like that in it. And it is a really beautiful electrolyte, right? So electrolytes obviously help you conduct electricity and energy. And so for the ATP in your cells to be functioning, you need to be hydrated, you need your minerals. And so I love the connection of the waters, the salt of I mean, I like now I lick I take a Celtic salt in the mornings, I lick it, and then I drink the water. So I'm very conscious of that. I take fulvic acid, different minerals and things like that. I'm very conscious of hydrating my cells so we can conduct this electrical energy. And so I love that you went to somewhere with the waters and the salts before you go to the place where you're going to get the electric jolt, right? So your body can handle it. So much of this is like they're literally been like preparing your body, taking you to that place. Here you are with this mineralized, beautiful water, and then you go to the place where you get the electric jolt. So yeah, it's even these beautiful intricacies of the story all have to happen, for you to be ready and for that moment. So yeah, it's just been a really big theme that's come up recently. I love if you're interested in that kind of thing. Also, dehydration through lack of minerals can cause things like high blood pressure. So a lot of people who have high blood pressure or think they do are actually just dehydrated and need Celtic sea salt in their diet. So things like that are just these little key things, but that your doctor will put you on a high blood pressure medication where all you really need is Celtic sea salt. So I'm on a bit of a like rant admission about this at the moment, is that we need to be properly hydrating ourselves to for life. Nobody wants high blood pressure or whatever that is, but for your health, and then obviously to do this work as well. So it all just ties in so beautifully. I mean, this is just, it's wonderful. I love it, Genine. Like, so good.
And you think about the pyramids, that people don't get that there is water under the pyramids, right? That when the pyramids were completely online, they were running water through the subterranean chambers, right? They needed the water to be fully activated. And now there's not much water there, right? So water's very, very deep down. So without the waters, the pyramids aren't online. Without the water, our bodies can't be online.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So good. Oh, I love it. So tell me, is there anything else from that piece that you feel is important? And then I'd love you to connect us on that final leg of the journey that you were invited on to Stonehenge.
So let's do one more piece about the pyramids. When we were in, let me just tell a cool story about the pyramids that really just cements this story about, that their spiritual technology, their technology. It's electrical technology. It's not a tomb or anything like that. Hopefully people get that by now. When we went into the King's Chamber, when we went into the King's Chamber, you're not allowed to meditate in it. You're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that and all of the things. Anyway, but the guide popped out for a few minutes. He goes, I'll give you 20 minutes, right? And so he popped out and we're like, he knows what we're here for. So we're like, quick. So we all jumped in and we did an activation. So activating the King's Chamber and tapping into the energy. When I talked before that I was channeling light language outside of the pyramid, boom, nothing like has what I channeled through in the King's Chamber was nuts. And the interesting part is that the energy when I started singing, right? And, my human mind is going, man, I'm not a singer. I don't have like all of the things, right? But I was feeling called to sing and at this really high note. And a backstory, when I went to Puerto Rico with this same group of people earlier in the year, we opened up a portal, did an activation. I came out of that and I went, oh my God, the new frequency, and this is pretty out there, the new frequency of Om is 888 hertz. And they're like going, okay, why? Tell us about that. What does it sound like? And I sung a note, just boom, sung this note really, really high. And they all said, that's the sound we heard in the King's Chamber at the Great Pyramid.
Ooh, I love that.
And so then I'm in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid singing that same note. And the note just kept getting higher and higher, like the energy kept pulling me like higher and higher, like as if my head was elongating. And, my human mind's going, I can't sing any higher. Oh no, what? And like it was high and it was long. And afterwards they all went, oh my God, that you sang with that download in Puerto Rico.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So I activated some water in the King's Chamber and, may have that. Don't tell anyone on this podcast. So that was really cool.
That's amazing.
So that's just a cool little story. But, really all of this comes down to that the pyramids of Egypt in particular are a representation of, it's the key to life. It's the key to who we are. It's the mystery of everything. I asked years ago, show me the mysteries. And, Da Vinci, he was all over it. Look at the the Etruvian man. Look at that drawing, and it's like the pyramids all in there, all the sacred geometry. The pyramids are a reflection or a fractal of the earth. All of the measurements line up. Robert Edward Grant, love his work as a mathematician. All lines up that we are an energetic conductor. We need the water, we need the salt, we need molecular hydrogen to activate all of it so that our body can channel all of this energy, and we can be the oracle. We can be the channel. Don't need to go look externally. We are everything within. It is the key, right?
Yep. And I've been drinking the molecular hydrogen for years now. Yep. And it's all part of it. And I was like, oh, what am I doing here? This doesn't make sense. But my body needed it. My body could do this work. It's amazing. So, oh my goodness, how did you end up? I'm just conscious of your time. We're at two different ends of the world. Late for you, it's early. So, tell me. Yeah, I'd love to. I want to hear your part of that story, because I'll tie up my piece at the end, maybe with how it relates, which is kind of cool. And you don't know this, but yeah. So,
all right, awesome.
Tell me about how. Yeah, tell me about that leg of the last piece of your current journey.
Yes. Okay. So this part of the story is reasonably quick, because basically the journey that we were on, we knew that we were bridging heaven on earth. And so the earth bit was we needed to get elemental, first of all, electric, we needed to get the salt, and we needed to have the water. We needed to bring the earth part in. And then going to the pyramids, it was connecting up into the galactic and bringing heaven on earth. Again, same as what I was saying before, we are the pyramid. We are the conductor of energy. So we are the bridge of heaven on earth, our physical vessels. Like, how lucky was we as human beings to be able to walk around and be, like, I love what you said, little, acupuncture needles. And so the mission of this trip was bridge heaven on earth. And then whilst I was in Egypt, I had a message from a girlfriend, and she said, she lived in Italy near me, and she said, do you want to have a girls' weekend in London this weekend, like a day after Egypt? Now, nuts. Why would I want to go to London straight after being to Egypt, right? And I'd just been to London. I'd been there for 8 days with my family, literally like 3 weeks before. So I'm like, my head says like, no, but yes. What's your itinerary? She said, Christmas markets, shopping. I'm like, boring. And Stonehenge. I went, done. I'm in. Let's go. Right. She's not even down with any of this stuff, right? Although she may very well be. And so then Karina said, oh my God, I've been getting this message. Bridge heaven on earth, and then bridge the stones. We're like, right, well, apparently I'm finishing the trip by going to Stonehenge. So 3 days later, I'm at Stonehenge, and it's windy and it's cold and there's tourists everywhere and all the things. And I'm like, right, headphones in, recorder on, here we go. It wants to say something. Again, I don't quite remember because I was like in full channeling, but it was about bringing the energy through the ley lines from Egypt into Stonehenge. I feel like Stonehenge is like an organ. This is just pure download, but I was downloading this today. It's like the heart, and it's got to pump the blood through the ley lines, pump it through the veins. And so that's why it was really important as an organ to do that. You can tell me whether that resonates or not. And so then, it was like then bringing it out across the world, like that grid work, bringing that energy, this new frequency energy throughout all of the ley lines. So
amazing.
I don't know, took 20 minutes. Done.
I'm done. Let's get back and have
then we went shopping. Yeah.
Amazing. It's so good. I'm like, I love it. And Stonehenge is the heart chakra. So yeah, you're on point. You didn't even know.
Didn't even know.
That's it. right? So the
Right.
heart is obviously is also a rose, right? It's that red, the energy, right? So the
Yeah.
heart, Mary Magdalene, red heart energy. It's all linked. So yeah, you're on point. Of course.
Wow.
Trusting and following, and your friend is obviously part of it. She's in it. She might not feel like she's doing the work, but as a connector and an inviter of you, she's as in it as the rest of us are, right? She just might have no clue that she is, which is amazing as well, but does it and acts on that impulse, right?
Yeah.
Um, to do the invitation and to do that. So I love that. Oh my gosh, there's so much here. So I'm going to try and just in a couple of minutes tell you this little piece of the night of this story, um, for you as well, because for you to know that how on point you are, right? So, um, I was in London, um, and this is after, gosh, 3, 4 years on the road already. I'm in London, kind of waiting for my Viking man who I'd met in Estonia. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But so I was in London and I felt this pull to go to Stonehenge, but I was exhausted. I'd been on the road, I'd been doing all this traveling. And I said, I'll make this as short as possible, but I said to the universe, if I'm supposed to go to Stonehenge, I want somebody to come pick me up and take me, right? I'm alone in London. Nobody knows I'm there pretty much. And getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know what that is. Um, but anyway, so I'm alone in London. Nobody knows I'm there. How am I going to get picked up? Anyway, I get this Facebook message off a guy that I barely know, but he's a sound engineer. So this is where this links in, right? And he had made the flow frequencies for me, which you might have gotten as when you were in my programs, but I think that was 2017 or 18. Anyway, he created these binaural beat flow frequencies as a sound engineer turned spiritual guy. He was a Hollywood guy turned spiritual. Um, Jamin Van Dillen, if anyone's wondering who that is. Um, so he so he reaches out and said, "Hey, can we chat?" And I was like, "Okay." And he thinks I'm in Australia because that's where I had been, and I presume he's in LA. Anyway, he's like, "Hey," he goes, "I'm in London," and I said, "No way, me too." And he said, "Really?" He said, "I'm going to Stonehenge on Friday," which was the solstice, I think, or the new or full moon or solstice or something like that. And I said, "Well, I've just been googling how to get there, and it looks really tricky. Two trains, two buses, whatever, 3, 4 hours." And he said, "Well, I'll come pick you up," were his words, and I was like, "I'm in." Right? So, so I knew it was uh, divine that I was supposed to go. So anyway, I do take a train or two, but he picks me up with a friend and we go to Stonehenge. And again, loads of tourists. It's an auspicious day. And it's in the Lions Gate as well. So this is the 2018 Lions Gate. And he has been to Egypt. He's also been, and he, as a sound engineer, recorded the frequency of the Great Pyramids, right? So, are you there? I've just lost you for a second.
Yeah, I'm here.
So, he has just been to Egypt on this mission. He's recorded the sounds of the Great Pyramid. He plays them at Stonehenge with me as I go into the Akashic Records of Stonehenge to help heal it. And there was a big plan from the council to put a tunnel underneath Stonehenge, a traffic, like a motorway, build a giant tunnel underneath it. And the stones were crying, saying, "This is going to ruin the energetics of this area." And so I had no idea about all this. I was just in the Akashic Records doing my work. And I had to put this giant protective sort of bubble layer all the way, underneath it, around it, whatever, to protect the energies of Stonehenge, because again, it was crying and desperate that it might end up offline. So anyway, so I did that work. He is playing in that moment, though. He is playing this Great Pyramid sound and oming within the Great Pyramids specifically, right? So we do the work. Turns out that they tried, and it's finally been uh, they've been trying to fight it in court to have this tunnel, and I think it finally just recently was pushed back and said they couldn't do it. So anyway, so that was wild. And then it turns out that this Hannah person that I keep mentioning, I hope she comes on the podcast, of folk like keep talking about her and she'd never come on. But she turns out she had been there 2 weeks before me doing something, right? And so did I know that or didn't know that? Anyway, we both end up in Glastonbury. I'm 2 weeks behind her in Glastonbury. We connect. It's a whole thing. I don't meet her, but I meet people who did meet her. So again, her code that she's in Glastonbury. Anyway, then she goes to Edinburgh, downloads that tattoo, which is an abundance code, right? I feel the need to purchase the abundance code from her and then later get it tattooed onto my body. 2 weeks later, I'm not supposed to be in Edinburgh because I'm going to Dubai, but I have one day in Edinburgh. I go to Edinburgh. I find out she had been to Roslin Chapel, and I thought, well, I can't go there. I don't even know where. I didn't know where it was. I thought it was actually further south in the borders of Scotland. But then, about a day before I'm supposed to go to Scotland, my sister uploads an Instagram story of her in Roslin Chapel, and I think, oh, that's funny. I said, oh, how were you there? And she said, oh, it's only 10 minutes from my house. So Roslin Chapel, Rosslyn Chapel, is on the Rose line, right? Very specific. I didn't know that, of course, right? Like this is me figuring it out. God, there's some feedback. I hope this recording's okay. But so on the Rose line, so I say, can we go? And my one morning I have in Scotland, that at that point I'd been there a few weeks before for the birth of my nephew, uh, on the solstice. So I had been right there at the solstice. And then I keep getting taken back for his birthday every solstice to the Rose line because that's where they live, right? So it's a whole thing. Anyway, so I am doing my solstices there. Anyway, so I'm there, and my dad happens to be there, and we'd had a tricky few years. We hadn't spent a lot of time together, but for some reason, also my dad decided to pay the £10 or whatever it was to get into Roslin Chapel, which he normally wouldn't pay any money to go into these kind of places. So it was unusual that he actually paid the money to come in, because I thought it was just going to be me and my sister going in. Anyway, my dad paid the whatever it was to come into Roslin Chapel, and I ended up in the crypt of Roslin Chapel with my dad, which, how does that even happen? Anyway, it was just the two of us down there at one point, and the energy and the past life activations and all the things were going on in there. Anyway, so we had a whole Roslin Chapel Rose line experience, and my dad is the representation of the patriarchy for me, by the way, which is very interesting. Anyway, so we have this moment. Anyway, it's a whole thing, and then so, but it's like Hannah had opened something for me, and 2 weeks later, I'm at all these points doing the work. So we're working together, but not on purpose. There was no plan that was not talked about. It just happened. So then she flew back to Australia. She was supposed to go to Bali, but she ended up going through Abu Dhabi, which is, half an hour away from Dubai, and then goes to Australia with this code before I had it. So she activated it in Abu Dhabi. Anyway, and then a week later, I've been invited to go talk and run workshops and speak in Bali, in Dubai for 10 days. So I go over there and I'm doing talks on abundance, the Akashic Records in Dubai. And I end up with this lady and coming in all of her robes and sort of burqa and face covered, and There's a name for it. I can't remember what it's called. It's not a burqa. It's called something else. But I don't want to be disrespectful, but I can't remember the exact word for it right now. So she comes in fully covered up. She's come to both of my workshops. And I thought, I hope I don't offend her. We talk about different things and her culture. I didn't want to offend anybody. Anyway, I just thought, well, I'm just going to be myself. And she's here. She's turned up again. And she booked a couple of sessions with me. And the first one, we had this session. And anyway, I don't want to get too into the story, but we had a second session. And in that second session, well, while I was in Dubai, I had this message that I was there to heal Dubai. And I thought, that's insane. It felt heavy. It felt too much. I was crying at night. I was like, I can't. I'm one person. I'm here for 10 days. That's ridiculous. How am I supposed to heal Dubai here? I thought, I'll do what I can. I'll help as many people as I can. But I'm like, universe, I'm knackered. That's too much, right? My ego was not, it wasn't even like thinking, oh, this is, big who's. I'm like, nah, I feel like this is too much. Anyway, so I do this second session with her, and it is the most bonkers. But before we go into that session, she sees my other tattoo, and I have this one on my phone. I pull my phone out, I show her it, and her full body activation by this code that has come through in Edinburgh. It's been active anyway, so she gets fully activated by the code. We go in and do this big deep session where we go back through the Akashic records into past lives, and she tells me that I am there with her in Atlantis, which is where this all links back to, right? And she said, you're here with me. You were a healer in Atlantis. And I'm thinking, was I? Okay. It hadn't ever come through for me. But she said, and you need to know that it wasn't your fault. She said, apparently she said you would normally heal everybody that needed it, but you couldn't heal me. And so in that lifetime, she had died. And she said, you need to know that I chose to die. You couldn't have done anything to save me. I chose to go. It wasn't your fault. So I needed that. My soul needed that, to hear that from her. Anyway, we go through many past lives. I don't know, 4 or 5. She's has an Egyptian experience, and we heal that past life for her. We have a couple of not so exciting ones. And then she has some really intense, her body's shaking, and we're going through this whole thing. I've never experienced anything like it in my life. The energy that came through in that healing. Anyway, so then she comes out of it, and we're sitting afterwards, sort of having our debrief. And she said, your mission here is complete. And I said, like, what? She said, you've done it. You've healed Dubai. And I was like, I hadn't told anybody about that, right? Like, that's not something that you share. People would be like, who does this girl think she is? This is bananas. And I was, I obviously hadn't shared it with anybody, but they are the exact words she used. And I thought, oh my God, how does she know? And she said, we've just healed the royal abundance lines of Dubai. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, how do you know that? And she said, well, actually, I'm part of the Dubai royal family. And I was like, no way. And she said, we've just cleared all the lines, the royal abundance code lines from here through Egypt. And I was like, I'm like goosebumps, like shaking just about. And I was like, oh my God. And so, yeah, I had like 1 or 2 sessions I had to get through there. And then I slept. I was supposed to go to the desert, ride on camels and stuff. And I ended up sleeping for, I don't know, at least 24 hours, if not 2 days. I don't know. I just slept and slept because I was so exhausted. And so then there's another link with this guy. I mean, it's such a wild story. But anyway, he then goes to Greece and connects codes through Greece and does his oming and his sounding. And then I end up back on Samothrace a year later. And then a girl gives me this huge crystal, and she asks me to go and take it to Rosslyn Chapel with this activated crystal, all about the divine feminine and the wombs. And so I end up back in Rosslyn Chapel with this huge crystal gridding it back through Greece and all the other things. And like, oh my gosh, I can't even it's just so wild. I can't. It's hard to even like articulate it all, and I'm trying to rush through it because I'm just conscious of the time and how long it's taking. But it, something opened. You've been doing it, and I don't know how it connects somehow, but I don't know how it all connects.
And interestingly, I've been called to go to Greece at the end of 2024. So I'll be living in Greece for September, October, November. And I was told there is a Stargate portal that I need to visit in
Yes,
Greece.
you do. You need to
And I'm
take
like,
it
okay,
back.
great. That's what I'm doing. I'll find it when
Oh,
I'm there.
oh my God. Like, so
Oh, goodness.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, and also yeah, the Oracle of Delphi might be somewhere for you to go as well. That's
Mm-hmm.
key. I was there too. So yeah, there's some big energy. I'm almost shaking with the wildness of all of this. Like it again, I don't really understand. I don't know what it all means, but it's crazy, and your path has been in some way connected to mine, and I'm so just bowled over by it all. And yeah, I'm so happy and excited that you've been on this journey, and also in a way I think it gives, not that my journey needed it, but it's some way a sort of validation or a validity to my journey, which I just again followed the flow, the energy, didn't understand why am I going here, what am I doing, you know. But you've had that same nudge, that same thing,
Mm-hmm.
similar messages, and it all links at some point. So it's it's wild.
It really does. It's wild and it's awesome. And, you know, it'd be interesting for us to do another follow-up podcast in a year's time,
Yes.
right? Can you imagine that? Where everything weaves more and more and more, because everything is constantly unfolding, and we're only giving the pieces of information that we can handle at the time.
Hmm.
And I believe 2024 and 2025, we're going to receive so much more information that we'll
Mm.
then be able to handle that we couldn't handle yet.
Yes. And I'm here, I'm in Scotland. Big portals have just come online here in the last few months. A lot of
Mm.
dragon energy, a lot of
I
really
was
cool
about to say
stuff.
dragon energy. Yep.
And the stones here, I'm sitting in an island that's very thin place. The energy is very potent here. I've visited the standing stones, and I keep getting taken to these different standing stones here in Scotland to link the energies. And yeah, and I know on a very important, well, you were in Egypt, I think it was the 17th, 18th of November. You had to be in that specific place. I was in a very specific place in the middle of Scotland on that day, very specifically. Um, so yeah, it's just, you know, it was my cousin's 50th birthday. Oh, interesting that it was her 50th actually. But
Mm.
that's why I was drawn to that specific place in Scotland for the second time this year. I've never been there before. I'd never even heard of it before.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I don't know. It's too much, but yeah, I would love to follow up and see how this all unfolds. Like it's so mad. Um, and I'm just so grateful that you're doing it, you're on the journey, and that you've done all that and you've shared it with us. And yeah, so it's so wild. And I'm sitting here as well. I've anointed myself with loads of rose oil today in honor of our journey. And yeah, just so grateful. And funny, you didn't bring it up, but in your podcast you talked about the white buffalo woman.
Oh,
And
yes.
we didn't
Yes.
even talk about that, but I felt compelled to listen. And then I don't know, a reading or something at some point, or I was told that I had this white buffalo energy. And I was listening to the prophecies of it this morning while walking on the beach. And it's literally, the energy of that is again about the specific wording of one of the videos I was listening to was about bridging heaven and earth. And so that is
Yep.
the prophecy. And so,
Right.
yeah, it's so funny to link that back as well, and that same message, and for us to keep focusing on that and our energy, and that's where I believe we are most productive at the moment. Like there's so much going
Yeah.
on in the world. It feels so dark. But there needs to be a crew of us who are continuing to focus our energy on bringing heaven to earth, because it needs, I feel like very strong. I'm here in Scotland to be an anchor for whatever is going on at the moment. In that space, that's my role here at the moment. Yours obviously has been very clear and very potent this year as well. And yeah, I don't even know what to say. So
Yeah. So much more. And obviously after this podcast we'll keep connecting, because I'm getting downloads as you speak. And this is where, it is the brave and the courageous who choose to do this and choosing to do it. We're choosing to trust and surrender and follow the energy so willingly and blindly, and just going, we know that what we're here to do is potent. I mean, I'm moving my entire family across the world. Did I tell you that? Right? This is where we had the download that we will just follow the energy with the family,
yeah,
and we'll no doubt end up in all the energetic centers. And you imagine my children watching me do this activation work and then being part of it. And even if they're just, as you said, you were talking about when you were a child and your parents took you to all these places and you're like, oh, so boring. They're probably going to be like that, but they're going to be activated at the same time.
yeah, exactly.
This is the commitment that I was called to sell my house. So that is what we're doing.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's
Oh, yeah.
And there is a cost, right?
Right.
There's a cost to you, and
Yeah.
it's like it's no mean feat. Like really, this work
Right.
it's not for the faint of heart. It doesn't make us better or special. It's just we're doing it, and we've chosen to do it. And in my process as well, following this, I had to let go of everything, all my belongings, multiple times.
Yeah.
Had nothing at the end, and it's hard to do as a single person, but to do that, with a family in tow, two gorgeous young kids and a husband, I mean, even more like reverence to your journey and trusting that. I'm finding it hard enough to do it with a dog in tow. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild, and I really want to honor you for that and to continue this wild journey and the following of it. And also, I want to just very briefly mention the physical cost, in a sense, because it is exhausting to the body.
Yeah.
The travel, even just the travel, the over, the long haul flights, all that kind of stuff. And running that amount of energy through your body, there is a physical cost, right? As psychics and readers and whatever whatever you want to call us, there can be a physical cost too. It takes a lot to run that energy, and I think I was doing it probably dehydrated for the first few years, and at least now I'm more on top of that. But not that you've asked for my advice, but the focus, like for me, the last couple of years is integration. Like when you've run that amount of energy through your body, integration almost has to be the most important thing. And so for anybody as well listening on this journey, that it sounds all fancy and whatever doing this work, but if you don't allow your body to integrate and heal and hydrate, it can be really, really draining. So yeah, that was part of my journey. It took a lot out of me physically. Like yeah, after Dubai, I went to Bali and did more work there, and kept thinking, I must be done now. But yeah, the journey continues. Anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah, take care of yourself, my dear. It's big work.
Thank
And
you.
I hope you've got a beautiful break over Christmas coming up where you can just rest and recover. And so, where were you moving to? Do you know yet?
No,
No.
we are we're, we're going to start in Bali.
Wonderful.
Start in
Oh, that'll
Bali
be
and go
amazing.
from there. Yeah. I know there's a
Beautiful.
few places. It's definitely, there's Mexico in there, there's Greece in there, there's probably India. Yeah.
Oh,
Probably
wow.
Cambodia. Yeah.
Yep.
We shall see where I'm called. Literally.
That's incredible. Thank you again. This has been
Yeah.
amazing. I'm so grateful. Thank you for your time. I know it's late for you now. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody listening
Thanks.
as well. This work is for us, but ultimately it's for the collective. It's beyond
Yeah.
us. It's a bigger mission. Um, and yeah, I really, really want to honor you for your contribution in that journey and for trusting and following the flow. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, and
Thanks, Joe.
obviously check out in all of her work if you want to hear her whole story. Uh, Empress Empire's podcast, and I will obviously put your Instagram and your website and everything in the show notes. And I believe you have some of your activations for sale, so people can really go deep into that and really experience even more of your magic and start the journey.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, Joe.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, love. Appreciate it.